What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. If you couldn't tell from the title, this is going to be X-Plane 11 on the new 15-inch MacBook Pro. I've seen a lot of forums basically regarding this. Most people haven't tried it yet, so I thought, why not? I'm going to try it on my 15-inch MacBook Pro. I'm only using the demo version of X-Plane 11. I'm not too sure how it's going to work. This is literally the first time I played it on a laptop. I don't even have it on my computer, I just play FSX, but I thought, why not give it a shot? Let's see where it will take us and see how well it performs. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So if we look now, we're looking at the settings that I have. Well, this is a hardware spec I have on my MacBook Pro. I've got an Intel Core i7 quad core. I've also got the Radeon Pro 460, which is a 4GB graphics card. These are both the top spec things you can have within this MacBook Pro. I have got a 512GB solid state drive as well. So I do apologise, there is no audio for this X-Plane footage due to the fact that the sound quality was absolutely awful during the actual recording of it. So I decided to kind of just talk over it. I did decide to do, like, I was talking at the time, but I decided I couldn't really be bothered to do that because it just kind of went a bit tits up. So I decided to just kind of have a look at the kind of ins and outs and record a bit. So at the moment you're going to see basically me calibrating my joystick. That is the joystick we're using, and previously you would have saw the settings. We are starting a new flight with a Boeing 737-800. I think we had a look to do it from London Heathrow, but I think we decided to just go straight from Seattle. I believe we are in the American Airline colours as well. So the load up times on this weren't too bad at all. I was kind of worried about how long it would take, considering we're running it off a laptop. You know, these things are made generally to be run off like high spec computers. I'm not sure how it runs on the iMac, but I'll be honest, you know, from the footage that I recorded, I did try and put the frame rate sensor up as well. Not that I could kind of understand it most of the time, but I believe that a lot of the time we were averaging about 20 frames per second, and that's our standard. I personally didn't know how to change it. I didn't really want to look into changing the frame rate per second either at the time. I just wanted to leave it bog standard with the settings it gave me, which we'll see. And personally, when I kind of first loaded it up, I thought, you know, this game looks rubbish. Like, I thought the graphics were awful. And everything to go along with that, but it turns out they actually won. They ran quite well. It wasn't actually that smooth. Bear in mind, we were recording with a screen recorder at the time as well, which is going to be using up the processor at the time, meaning that takes away the kind of stability from the game. I thought you could zoom out a bit more than that, but you couldn't. That is literally the standard view. I didn't change too much during it. I kind of had a little look around the outside and the external views. As you can see, it's not too bad. The frame rate you can see is a bit jumpy at times. Obviously you've got the thermals coming from the engines, which I really like about X-Plane. It's something you don't get with FSX, unless you buy an add-on, I think, but I generally can't remember the add-on's name for FSX, which allows that. And it looked really nice. But I probably should have a little tweak around with the settings at some point to kind of have a bit more of an in-depth look into it. This is literally straight from getting the demo downloaded onto the Mac, getting my joystick configured with it, and just having a bit of a fly around. So bear in mind, this isn't anything serious. I completely forgot the parking brake was on as well. I was just trying to set the flaps properly, because last time when I tried it, the flaps just did not want to go down at all. But other than that, you know, it's not a bad sim at all. It works well, you know, for a Mac. I thought it ran quite well, and you should see that soon when we decide to actually take off. There is quite a bit of air traffic as well. I didn't even know how to turn that off, but when you look around you can see all the FedEx cargo aircraft. But I thought, you know, for a quad-core i7 processor, I believe it is the i7 6920HQ, which runs at 2.9 GHz. I believe it turbo boosts up to 3.7 GHz. Under load, but don't quote me on that, I'm not entirely sure. We can research it afterwards. The graphics card itself is a 4GB AMD Radeon Pro 460, which isn't a bad card, but you've got to remember these are mobile graphics chips. You know, these are meant to be in laptops, and if you were going to get the equivalent in a computer, you would get a fully cooled graphics card with obviously all the extractor fans and everything on top of that. Which isn't something you necessarily get with a laptop. You don't get the kind of the the way the heat is dissipated through the actual computer and the laptop. Obviously, when I was running this on my Mac, it got extremely hot. Obviously, the casing's made out of aluminium, so you're sat there literally burning. If you use it on your laps, I wouldn't advise doing it, only because the pure fact that it generally did burn. Well, not necessarily burn, but it was very hot, and it got to the point where I didn't want to have it on my lap anymore because it was that hot. It was like when you have a bowl of porridge in the morning, and you just leave the bowl on your knee, and it just really burns. Really, really burns. That's the kind of sort of heat you were getting from it, only because obviously metal conducts heat as well. But obviously we made our way down the runway. I was still trying to get to grips with how it actually operated. I had no idea what the key calibrations were on the keyboard to do anything. So I calibrated a couple of things like the flaps and the landing gear onto my joystick. The physics of the actual aircraft seemed to be quite spot on. Obviously the landing gear went up then. I didn't set anything else up. But for a Mac, I was sat there thinking to myself, when I looked out the side after takeoff and was looking at the scenery, I was like, damn, this is really, really good scenery. It's a lot better than what you'd probably find in standard FSX. And I was kind of looking at it thinking, this is the sort of scenery Orbex would kind of usually bring out. But that's a standard, You think what add-on scenery you could get if it was payware made for X-Plane. But I'm kind of thinking what you could kind of get out of it. I'm not sure how it'd run on an iMac, because obviously iMac's got dedicated power supply, which gives the CPU a bit more leeway. And they don't get as hot, I would say, as the laptops do. When you're running like a 600-700K 4GHz processor in the top spec iMacs you can get. That'd be pretty cool. I'm not sure how it'd run, but I'm sure it'd run pretty well. I've heard reviews on the fact that they can run games quite well, especially when you get the 4GB. I think it's the 4GB AMD Radeon 395X, I believe. But yeah, that runs pretty well. As you can see with another external view, it is a bit jumpy. But you've got to bear in mind we're using QuickTime to do the screen recorder as well, so you don't actually know how well that's picking everything up. I think it generally looks smoother in the game, and I noticed as soon as I stopped recording it got a lot smoother when it came to the frame rate. It wasn't too jumpy and it was flyable, and then that's what most people want. They just want to know that they can actually fly the aircraft without having about 8 frames a second. I think at the most we were averaging at about 20. It bobbed between 19 and 20, and you can kind of see that in the little screen capture thing at the top, which displays all the different things about the CPU usage, the GPU usage, and the frame rate in the sim, which I generally think was about 19, and you could tell that from the way that it wasn't as smooth as it could have been. If you were getting 30 frames a second, I would have been very happy with that. If there's a possible way to get that. Bear in mind, we are kind of running this on pretty high settings, like 4 times anti-aliasing, I think it's called, or whatever it's called. Basically, kind of smoothing out the edges. If I chuck that up to 8 times 8, I can probably see that you probably wouldn't really get many frames per second at all. But no, I was very proud. Not proud, I would say. I was very... actually, yeah, I am proud. I was quite surprised at how this little Mac handled the game. Considering this is a full-blown flight simulator, you don't really expect a MacBook to run it. You expect more of a gaming PC to run it, because these generally aren't made for gaming. They're personally made for editing and professional sort of creative job roles, like Photoshop and Final Cut Pro editing as such like that. But they can also run games. I've been running The Sims off it recently, and it runs it perfectly fine. Once again, it does get hot. I think anything that you're going to put on a Mac which kind of puts it under load, or even on a standard computer, you're going to get that sort of heat being dissipated from the CPU. On my gaming computer, it sits there and runs at about, what would I say, probably about, sometimes it creeps up to 91 degrees Celsius or centigrade. It is hot, and it runs very hot when you're playing Flight Simulator on it. But I've had the PC now for like 6 to 7 years, and it runs really, really well still, so I really can't fault it. And I haven't upgraded anything except the RAM. I think my computer's now running like 16 gig RAM instead of 8 that it originally had. Not that I can really see much difference, but that's kind of what you get with that sort of stuff. I don't generally think that FSX really utilises that sort of stuff. But anyway, get back onto the topic of X-Plane. Obviously, you've got all the shadows coming into the cockpit, which I really did like, because you don't usually get that within Flight Sim itself, unless you pay for the add-on sceneries to go with it and everything else. But we did decide to come in for a little landing here. I decided to bank round and bring it back round. I did actually mess up the landing a little bit, I think, because we kind of had to... I was trying to reduce the speed, but I had no idea how to put the spoilers up, or the air brakes, speed brakes, whatever you want to call them. I sat there pressing the question mark button on the keyboard, which on FSX brings them up usually, and nothing happened. So I kind of had to circle around twice, I believe, to try and bring the speed down, and then the flaps wouldn't want to come down, and the gear eventually came down. So hence why I pitched up, I believe, in a second to try. Yeah, I pitched up here to try and reduce the speed while we were coming in on approach, but couldn't reduce it down enough while reducing the altitude to get the landing. But yeah, you know, regarding on how it runs, it is flyable, and I'd definitely advise if you have got a laptop like this, as long as it's quad core and you're running a 4 gig card, I'd probably give it a go. Not too sure about the 2 gig versions. The i7 generally, I believe, is fine for it, but I think if you're going to try and run this on a 13-inch MacBook Pro, I wouldn't even bother. I just think it wouldn't cope, because technically you're running it off the onboard Intel graphics card, which by all means is pretty pants. You know, that's not really the best. You want a dedicated graphics card from either Nvidia or AMD. But I really did like the shadow effects on this, and there's probably a lot more I could do with it, and I probably will look into it a bit further along down the line, kind of looking into see what we can add to it, see if we can get any better performance, frame rate limiters, maybe try to get it up to about 30 if possible, because by the looks of it, it did seem to average it around 20, and I don't know whether that was a setting that I set, but I had no idea how to change it personally. I think this is about here where I decided to bank round again. Yeah, I decided to go have a left little bank round, come into land, and I didn't know how to get the brakes to work either. I kept pulling back on the brakes on my joystick afterwards, and it just wouldn't work when I was coming into land. It just kept speeding up, and I was like, well, it slowed down finally, but I generally think when I was pulling the brakes, it was just sticking the parking brake on, which kept slowly bringing down my speed, which probably isn't the best thing to do when you come into land, and I wouldn't advise doing it in real life. But I did, going over the water, get a nice reflection from the water, and I thought it looked very nice. And you know, it's one of them things which I'd definitely advise kind of looking into, especially if you're looking into use flight sim on a Mac, if possible. Maybe X-Plane 10. I don't know how well X-Plane 10 would run. I just wanted to give X-Plane 11 a little demo tryout, because I wasn't too sure. I run FSX on a computer, and I really wanted to kind of do it on the go at the same time. It's not bad. It really isn't. You know, it's flyable. So if you're looking for that sort of stuff, I think it's great. If you want to record videos, then I probably wouldn't bother. You know, some people aren't really bothered if it's really glitchy. But generally, from a Mac, I was quite surprised. You know, I was surprised at the performance of the actual Mac itself, when it came into regards of actually how it ran the X-Plane simulator. Bear in mind, you know, these are fully blown out. Like, they have a lot of stuff involved in this, rendering out the whole world pretty much. I'm not sure how it performed with the real version, but I'm pretty much guessing it's the same. It's underneath, it's the underlying same game. But yeah, as you can see, we're coming into land now at the moment. Back at Seattle again. Obviously, do apologise for the landing skills here. Wasn't really the best, but I kind of just really wanted to test out the performance and kind of see how it all worked. And if you're kind of looking for that sort of stuff, I'd definitely advise getting it. It's cool. I like the fact as well that the runway is kind of they actually do like the gradient on the runway. So instead on FSX it's just straight, pretty much. It's just like level straight runway. On this you kind of bob up and down. Like, I don't know whether anyone's ever been to Birmingham Airport before. If you actually look at that, it kind of bobs up and down along the runway. It's pretty cool, and you should notice that when we come into land here, from the kind of angle of attack that we're coming in at. The landing wasn't too bad. It got a bit heavy. I think it bumped down, flared it quite well, I believe, and I think we touched down just in a second, just now. There we go. I believe we touched down there. And I was trying to brake and had no idea why it just wouldn't slow down. I was just if you look at the HUD indicator, then you can kind of see the speed. It was decreasing, but then it'd stop, and then it'd go back up again. And it just, I didn't know why it was doing, but as you can see, the gradient of the runway. They kind of slope down and then back up again, and it kept kind of like bouncing around. It's quite weird. I'd never really experienced that sort of stuff before within the simulator, unless you were flying into Lukla, or Courchevel, I believe, in France, in the French Alps, and stuff like that. Nice little runway to fly into. Very scary as well. I personally wouldn't really want to fly into them airports in real life. It's not something I'd probably feel safe doing. But yeah, you know, this is kind of coming to the end of it now. This is literally where we finally came to a halt. I kind of taxied off the runway a little bit. But yeah, if there's anything else you guys kind of want to know about this, it ran pretty well, I would say. For a Mac, it didn't do too bad at all. I wasn't too used to the key bindings and stuff, so I probably will do another video at a different time after I've played around with the settings. But overall, if you want to play a flight sim and you want to use your Mac, then by all means try it. You know, it is flyable with an average frame rate of about 20 frames per second on pretty decent graphics as well. I thought the graphics looked really, really nice. But yeah, anyway, that's it for it today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it gave you kind of an insight into how X-Plane 11 runs on a MacBook Pro 15-inch. I wouldn't bother trying it with a 13-inch, but if you want to, then by all means do it. But yeah, anyway, if this did help, please leave a like and comment what you thought. And if you want to keep up to date with me, please subscribe, and I'll keep you in touch with me for my next videos. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and be sure to leave a like, comment, rate and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye bye.